This will win or lose the football game, and again, it will be Christie as the lone deep back. Ortiz is on the line of scrimmage. Here comes O'Brien. They're going to hand it off to him. Third down and 10, 4-down territory. Flips it, dangerous, but Joey O'Brien has it. And like this, you're going to need those plays to go your way.
Joined by Brett Gordon, head coach of the LaSalle College High School Explorers, for this edition of Chalk Talk, brought to you by the class of 1998 12th Man Club. We always appreciate their support of what we're doing here, and specifically with their classmate, Brett Gordon, head coach. So, Brett, we've been fortunate over the last 2 years to never have to do a Chalk Talk after a loss. Says a lot about the program and where you've gotten to this point. Unfortunately for your guys, it was a tough game, a great effort, a high-scoring affair against Roman Catholic, and the KLites did come out on top. Want to give you a chance to react to the game that was between two of the state's best on Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, Friday night was a back and forth game. We had a lot of respect for Roman going into the game as far as some of the firepower that they presented on both sides of the ball. But what I said to the team afterwards, I think really what this sport, and especially at the high school level, is all about is really how you handle adversity. And what I said to the players after the game was, if you really look at, and you mentioned it, over certainly the beginning of this season and last season, this program as a whole has faced very little adversity. The only loss we had last year was a playoff game. So what happens after that is it's a very sudden, abrupt ending to a season. And then everybody kind of goes on their way. There's guys that go play other sports, and you don't really get a chance other than the banquet and maybe getting the group together one other time. And that's usually a week or two afterwards to really kind of talk through and get a feel for how people would react. You fast forward now to this year, played a pretty tough schedule out of the gate, and were able to come out on top in all 4 games. But I never felt like we were really playing our best complementary football, really, in all 3 phases. So we also, with that being said, didn't have a lot of adversity this year based on we came out on top. And when you're not playing your best and you're still winning, it's a good thing. However, there is a negative aspect of that it tends to allow certain symptoms not get addressed because sometimes you need to face a loss in terms from both a player and a coaching perspective to really take a hard look at what you're doing, how you're doing it, and make the necessary adjustments. So we're going to find out real quick what type of team we have. I know what we're capable of, but oftentimes, in order to really establish what you're going to be about the rest of the season and how we're going to go from here remains to be seen, and we're going to get a chance to do that, certainly here Saturday night against another great opponent. But I do think from a football perspective and from a life perspective, these are the types of lessons that we need to learn in order to grow.
And I know we're right in the middle of that, I'm sure, but how have you seen the young men react to this loss in your time since Friday night, right? Coming in, film study, practice, and your normal week to week.
Yeah, the reaction I've seen so far, I believe it to be positive. There does seem to be a different level of focus so far this week from being around the guys. Because really, when you look at kind of where we're at, who's our next opponent, and then the rest of the league schedule after that. And you've heard me say this all along for a long time. What's most important is to be able to play our best brand of football, into the October and November timeframe. So losing the game Friday night doesn't change any of that. And as I said, if anything, hopefully it's a wake-up call that we probably got to get a little more prescriptive on our approach. Again, both as, really as an overall team, not take anything for granted. And sometimes we need to remember that winning is not easy. And in certain cases, you can get too comfortable if you're used to winning all the time. And in certain cases, might lose a little bit of an edge, which could be the difference in a game like Friday night. So the fact that it happened, I view as really a positive because I think this group needed it. But then needed it meaning, let's see how we react to it this week. And so far so good.
Let's talk about this week. St. Joe's Prep is on the calendar. Arch rival of LaSalle, two institutions that think a lot of each other, have relatively similar missions, great football history on both sides. You've played in this rivalry as a player, had coached in it as an assistant, and now, of course, as the head coach of LaSalle. So, what does come to mind when somebody says LaSalle versus St. Joe's Prep, the rivalry on the football side?
Well, a lot of my best memories as a player and as a coach have come from this matchup. And that covers, that dating as far back as 1995 when I was a sophomore at LaSalle and had the first time to play in that Thanksgiving game down at LaSalle University, packed house. So that's where the memories began. And then certainly coming back to LaSalle as an assistant coach had some great memories in the early 2000s, all the way up through 2010, 11, 12. And then first time as a head coach, obviously had had some great memories from the regular season game. On the flip side of that, there's also been some not so great memories going up against a program like St. Joe's for all those years. So because of that, there's a lot of positives, certainly a lot of lessons and some heartbreaks along the way as well. But I think all would agree that, for the Catholic League and for Philadelphia football as a whole, and certainly for alumni and supporters of both schools, it's a good thing when there's a healthy rivalry that I think we've gotten back to. So we expect, a great game Saturday night.
At a great venue, a historic venue, but I also know that at times there are logistical challenges with a place like Franklin Field. There is a Penn game earlier that day. So I'm curious from a team logistics perspective, how do you guys do your best to adapt to a situation like that and make it feel as routine and normal as possible?
Yeah, I would just say I think our road schedule up to this point has prepared us for really any environment we go into. We've played in front of big crowds. We've played with a lot of noise so far this year. We certainly haven't played in a venue the size of Franklin Field, and we'll spend some time with the team talking about that later this week. Just I don't know how much our players really understand the tradition and the history, and how lucky they are to be playing at a venue like Franklin Field with the likes of Vince Lombardi and Bart Starr and Norm Van Brocklin and Bill Berge, the likes of that played in that stadium and going to be on the same field that we're going to be on Saturday night. Certainly, I'm well aware that there's a Penn game before us, and rumor is that we're still waiting to see what the Philly schedule kicks out, which means that the city is going to be alive and well on Saturday night. So we're going to embrace it. I know the ADs are going to be down there today working out the logistics as far as locker rooms and all that. To me, those are the details that I'm not going to focus a lot of attention on. More so, just make sure that from a timing perspective, we get down there in enough time, and then certainly just making sure that we're locked in to play the best brand of football that we can.
What in particular about this iteration of St. Joe's Prep stands out to you? Certainly a lot of returners, but a lot of that linebacking core is gone. Some guys on the defensive line. I'm sure you'll tell me they just reloaded, but what in film has stood out about this group of Hawks?
Yeah, without giving the standard line, I mean, they're every year when you turn on the film, they look very similar from the standpoint of they're just very good in all three phases. And then there's just really different numbers and different characters that you can plug into it. But they play a extremely aggressive style of defense. To your point, I think it's a testament to them. I mean, if you look at the firepower they lost on defense to graduation last year, and then look at the production they're putting out on the field, it's certainly a credit to them. And then from an offensive perspective, they put a lot of stress on the secondary with their passing game, and they have a great running back in Kion Billups and do a good job up front. So, when I look at the matchup and I look at them, I see a great opportunity for our guys who we believe are battle tested. We certainly know that St. Joe's is battle tested based on the schedule they've played. And it'll be a great opportunity to see where both teams are at come Saturday.
And sometimes the lost nugget in a discussion like this is they need to buck up and play you guys too. And you guys were their only defeat in the state of Pennsylvania last year. You guys had a young team last year and a lot of your guys coming back. So as you think about the two games that you played against St. Joe's Prep, one win, one loss, both one possession games, how are you guys better now compared to when you played them last year?
Yeah, I think the goal last year, certainly if you look at kind of recent history, our first goal was to make sure that first off, that our own players believed that we had opportunities and could beat those guys. And on the flip side, that St. Joe's felt the same way, knowing that, hey, this team is certainly formidable, has a little bit of a different feel to it, and now we got to be at our best. I still thought our best game of the regular season as a whole, and probably the whole season last year, was our first game against them. But on the flip side, I felt like probably the worst game we played all year was the playoff game. I have my own kind of thoughts around maybe why that happened that way. Did we lose some of our edge and give that to St. Joe's for that second game? Maybe. I think the way the game played out, you could certainly support that narrative when you looked at how the game went. But we also know that we're going to get their best, and the challenge we have, and we've tried to explain this to the players, is based on the history of last season, based on a lot of the, I'll call it the named players on our team. With that comes you're going to get everybody's best each and every week. And there's a mental piece to that to be able to withstand everybody's best week after week after week. And are you mentally tough enough to do that? And I think, like I said earlier, I think that happened on Friday night, and we didn't show that we were able last Friday to kind of shut it down and figure out a way to come out on top. So now we learn that lesson. How do we then turn the page quickly against a team that we're certainly going to need to be at our best to beat? But also knowing that this game will not define our entire season, nor did last week, whether we win or lose. So really, we got to get back to playing a little more complementary football as a whole, offense, defense, special teams. We've showed glimpses in all games in all three phases where we're playing very well and playing to our capabilities. But we've also had examples in all three phases where we're not firing on all cylinders. So that's what we're trying to figure out here.
Big week for LaSalle football, big week in the Philadelphia Catholic League. As you mentioned, big week in Philadelphia overall with everything going on in the city. You guys are a big part of that, and I wish you the best the rest of the week in practice. We can't wait to see you guys on the field on Saturday at 7:30.
Thanks, Bob. We're looking forward to it. Appreciate it.